Yes, London, how we doing?
Financial experts have painted a grim picture of the impact of COVID-19 on the Jamaican pension industry.
What am I going to talk
Member of the
about?
Pensions Industry Association addressed the matter at the ICA's numerous communications group virtual town hall meeting.
Yes, London. It's the doctor's surgery. We've been off here for a while now. Wait, I think that's a delayed reaction.
Why you turn it down?
It's the doctor's surgery. We've been off here for a while now. We hope everyone's doing well out there in London. Yeah. Um, we want to, wish everyone well. Um, Condolences to anyone that's lost a member of family during this so-called pandemic. Um, and we wish everyone continues to stay safe and be safe moving forward. We're doing a trial show to relaunch as everyone's trying to get back into work and get back into the day-to-day needs to be done. We're streaming live on YouTube if you want to see us in the studio at the doctor's surgery. On what is it again on the YouTube?
Find it by check the channel name.
You'd have to search by check on the channel name, the doctor's surgery. As you know, if you don't know, it's a phone and radio show where we discuss current affairs and the current affairs that's been going on in the news for the last couple of months or so. As you know, the last 2, 3, 4 months globally has been the inundated pandemic. Um, we we are shocked by the Office of National Statistics um, in right here in the UK that's shown that the death rate has been 4 to 1. Did they say? But in terms of each white person affected by coronavirus in terms of death, it's a 4 to 1 in terms of 4 black folks that's passed away. When you do the comparison or the comparative analysis, 4 to 1. Um, that's an amazing figure. That's a shocking figure. So we just wanted to know how you guys have been taking this whole pandemic. It's probably been played out, spoken to into the ground, but nonetheless, it's good to talk, as the saying goes, and to get a lot of the worries and concerns and the questions asked and answered in terms of what's going on day to day. Um, so there is a lot that we need to look at and really address as a people, in organizing to go forward. There's been a lot of changes, as they say. The world will never be the same, as they say. And there's a lot that's happening that, beggars belief in terms of current affairs. We're not we're not leaning towards any of the conspiracy information. We want to have an adult conversation in and around everything that's taking place and impacting us as a community based on, like I said, current affairs in the news. In the past, on the past shows, for those who listened in at the time, and for those who took part in the past shows, we discussed various nuances that are discussed in the media along the way and how it's impacted. The mainstay for the last day or two or so in the media has been the information around the Prime Minister's advisor leaning away from the advised information that he helped to formulate and he gave a speech yesterday explaining his actions. And the question would be, I guess, how would it have been taken if it was one of us out there in the general population that did the same thing? Would it, is it because it's a person in a position of power and authority, why they're able to flaunt the very rules that everyone else abided by, or it doesn't matter in your eyes? There's more important things to get on with. um that's part of it, and the search, as they say, for Red October to find a solution for the coronavirus. That there's been probably hundreds of millions now, or millions anyway, being spent in the search for a vaccine or a cure for this virus. There's been countries that have pushed forward their solutions. As we know, the American president is using hydrochloroquine, and that's a medication that's designed for treating malaria. And there were some provisional studies with this long, and it's also used to treat lupus. For those that may be suffering from symptoms of lupus, um, you may be familiar with hydrochloroquine, and there's a saying that says that that medication has some um, suggestive properties and help and so forth. So, how are you feeling in terms of how apprehensive are you feeling in terms of this search and the worry around it? The Madagascar cure, where the Madagascar Prime Minister stands by his herbal remedy that he says his country has found, that has helped to recover a lot of the patients in Madagascar, who's got what, something like very few deaths in comparison to Europe. It's funny, and again, another era that I would like to look at is that there was this big push in the news media that Africa and especially sub-Saharan Africa would be looking at something like 268 million to be affected by coronavirus, and it's not manifested because these African countries, these poor third world countries that everyone looks down on, they've had a better response, a better approach in terms of controlling and treating the coronavirus so far. Yet their approach and their remedies haven't been assessed and looked at. Is it because they're poor countries? Is it because they're black countries? Or is it because the solutions aren't coming from Europe? We can actually look at these areas in a very dissecting manner. So there's a lot to discuss. We haven't been on air for a while, and there's been so much swirling around. I do not want to really discuss any conspiracy information. We want to discuss factual information that's out there in the public eye, staunch information where whether it's suggestive in terms of the research or the clinical information so far, or whether it's fundamentally being shown across the board. We know Cuba was the first country, another poor, underdeveloped country, as they like to say, in the third world, that came up with uh, a sol- huh? Again? I've been told I've been doing too many ohms, but so I do apologize if I'm saying too much. I haven't been on air for a while, so I'm getting used to being in front of the microphone and in front of the camera again. It's Omega FM. If you're listening via the internet, omegafmradio.co.uk, welcome. The number, if you want to call in and have a chat or put a point across and join in into this debate, is 0753 996 8143. 0753 996 8143. I remember early on in the year when this problem was just coming to fruition, there was a lot of misinformation and misguided information going out there. That one of the first ones that I pushed to rebuttal was that black people can't get coronavirus. I don't remember if I don't know if any of you lot saw those texts and those and that what's it called? Uh, that trending the information that was trending as according to what they say on social media that yeah that black folks can't get coronavirus and when I did my research into that as to where this information came from, it turned out that this was from a joke that a comedian had put out, became like factual information. And that's one of the first set of information that I thought was dangerous in terms of the health and the well-being of the community. And it's now been shown to be the case, as you can see, in terms of the death rate, in terms of the ratio, in terms of those impacted, especially here within London and in those areas where we have a high proportion of black people, a significant amount of people that have died and have been affected by this have been, as they say, from the BME group. So misinformation is a very dangerous thing. But how do you manage misinformation? How do you take misinformation on board without censorship? And that's another area that we have to be tentative with, because when you censor information, you create censorship. And I remember growing up, one of those countries that people, till this day, people have always lambasted, whichever word you want to use, a pronunciation you use, was China, in terms of how their human rights and how they allowed people to have freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And the West was always anti restriction in that sense. And it's so weird now that due to these little nuances that's popped up over time, the West is moving more and more and more and more into a mode of restricting people's ability to express themselves because of what they claim to be the impact of misinformation. But this misinformation goes a long way, because according to the President of the United States, who introduced the whole narrative of false news and fake news, I should say, has highlighted how biased even the Western media and how misleading even the Western media can be with their information. So whilst freedom of expression and freedom of speech hasn't been per se restricted in its literal sense, in the way that it's restricted in a covert way, as managed almost the same solution, where people, not every idea, not every thought can now be expressed because of the platform that you may be expressing it on. They might be, consequences of those actions. So what was once something that was treated as a pariah in the East, in China and those communist-based countries, is now becoming something that is systematic globally, similar to how the viruses spread globally. The virus of dissent and restricting information is also growing along with this virus, and it's becoming more and more evident every day when you see the impact of what's been happening. So we have to create an avenue where we can discuss things and get accurate information across, because we can see how misinformation can be very dangerous, especially to us in the Black community, where we need to know a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more along the way, because we tend to be the ones that are always at the blunt end of what goes wrong. When things go wrong, we are the ones that suffer the most in terms of the consequences of in relation to the outcomes, negative outcomes. And if anything has come to fruition from this pandemic is the fact that we have to now start to consider, how do we as a people move forward in terms of protecting ourselves. We on every Thursday we clap and we applaud for the NHS. Yet, and for the heroic work that they've been doing, based on how the media has explained what they've been going through and so forth. Because a lot of us haven't been into the hospitals to actually see these things for ourselves. So we go by what the media has pushed forward. And every day you see our neighbors go outside, and they not every day, every week over the past few months, and applaud the hard work that they've been going through. Yet, consequently, we still have been impacted significantly by this. There's, and is it something that we need to start being a bit more weary and a bit more aware of? One of the things that has come to mind many a times is that, have we expired our time in the West? It's a serious question. Have we expired our time in the West? Because in a moment of global crisis and global struggles, be to be to feel as though we are being pushed in the corner. And note, I'm saying to feel. I'm not saying that we have been pushed in the corner, but to feel as though we've been pushed in the corner, where when you watch and see things on social media, you see murders still taking place in the United States, where there was a father and son that chased a young black guy out jogging, accused him of being well, they didn't accuse him of anything. They chased him. If you saw the video, shot him dead by when he's out on his own business, his own affairs. And they were literally going to get away with it until a video came out showing that they chased this young black man and executed him, because their excuse for that was that they thought he was a burglar. Now, if there wasn't video evidence for that, because it came from the people it came from, and it was about the person who had died, skin tone played a massive role in this, where it was so easy for someone to say, well, they thought the black guy was a burglar. Recently on social media, there was a video placed on there by a bunch of white guys that kept putting a truck loaded with goods in the black community. And what happened was, you had, stupid black folks, but they were baited nonetheless. Something that the laws in this country fortunately protects against. They were baited nonetheless to jump into this truck and look at the goods. And then as they entered the truck, the doors were slammed shut. The flooring inside the truck was covered with grease. And then they drove the truck around in a very ferocious and vicious manner, throwing the occupants around, slamming them in the doors, slamming them in the walls, and laughing whilst observing the video footage of them screaming and being slammed around in the back of the truck. All this treatment and all these things in how they are dealing with people these days. We have to genuinely ask the question. Have we expired our time in the West? Is it time that we as a people start to invest in a nation state for ourselves, where we start to step away that the notion of multicultural Britain, where we're included, because there is a multicultural Britain, but do you feel included? Do you feel safe? Do you feel that the health services got you 100%? Do you feel that the police force has got your back 100%? Do you feel that the politicians have got your back 100%? Are these things something that you feel that you are in a good position, in a strong position in the UK? Do you see the same being reflected in the other European states, or the United States? Is it something that needs to be looked at in a conversation? Because it is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It is very depressing at times when you look at it every day. And this is why a lot of black people, they just turn away from the topic or the question or the debate, and they accept it as a fact of life. And should it be even be thought of in that way, that it's a fact of life, that this is how it's going to be? So should we be, do you feel, let me know where you stand with all of this. I don't want to incite anything into your thinking, but it'll be good to hear from you, the callers, first and foremost, to know that you're listening. So if you're listening, I might be rambling on for no reason, so let's have a look to first and foremost to get some communication lines set up, to make sure that there's, first of all, that there's a listening audience. True. So 0753-996-8143. Are you listening? Let us know if you're listening, or if we're here talking to ourselves. It's good to know if we have any listeners out there. It's a long time we haven't done this show, at least 2-3 months. So it's good to know that that we're safe, and that the listening audience is safe. If you're a listener from before, and just by chance you're listening in, because it's not like we're a big show. We've just come back, bam, we're back on air. And if you're a new listener, it's the first time you're hearing the doctor's surgery, give us a shout. Let us know that you're listening. The number is 0753-996-8143. I'll give it again, 0753-996-8143. Because it's an interesting time that we're living in. And as it's an interesting time that we're living in, we need to start to debate these things on a serious level again, because of we got a live caller. Oh, brilliant. Bear with me 1 second, caller. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, thanks, man. Doc, I'm just calling mostly to say welcome back, because I hear you talking to Uncle one day when we were talking about Trump, and I know that sparked some issue, but I'd like to hear you finish about what you were saying about Cuba, because you were talking about Cuba was the first place to do something, but you didn't end up with it. You get distracted.
Okay, no worries.
Put that down so you can talk about that. And the other thing I'd like to talk about as well is the topic about Africa now. Like this finding of vaccination and all the money that they're spending on vaccination, not is going to Africa, but Africa is the place that they want to experiment the vaccine on. Yeah, so it's very ridiculous that after this Mauritius, is it Mauritius the place called? That
Madagascar.
Madagascar, and that's where the vanilla comes from as well. Vanilla is a very good source as well. And it's just to show the hypocrisy, that is really happening to I would say us, because I don't really use the word black then, yeah. But anyway, I just think we need to really wake up, if we don't wake up, we're gonna just live forever,
Yeah.
We need to move off that dream that Martin Luther King gave us, We
Yeah.
need to wake up from that, yeah. So anyway, nice to have you back, and you do have listeners, and continue the good work, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, respect.
Thank you.
And continue the good work, yeah.
No worries. Thank you. I'll give the information on air that you've asked for. Yes, give thanks to the caller. If you want to take part in the show, like I said, the number is 0753-996-8143. I'll give it again, 0753-996-8143. To the first point that the caller mentioned, in regards to Cuba. When the coronavirus first started and it started to go globally, Cuba was the first country to present a containment to some degree using a serum that they invented, or should I say produced. And I think at the time, I'm not sure if it was a herbal based serum or whether it was a pharmaceutically based serum. It slips my mind at the moment. If anyone knows a little bit more about the serum itself, please let me know. And that was meant to show quite rapid recovery in the few patients that they had at the time. Now, one of the things that we have to highlight is that there needs to be clinical trials or clinical observations, significant clinical trials or significant clinical observations with any product. So we do not essentially, we're not in a position where we can recommend any specific treatment for the coronavirus without this being done firsthand. So first and foremost, let me give the disclaimer that we are not presenting to say that anything that we are mentioning is a cure and a treatment people should seek for the coronavirus. We think people should do their detailed research. And the reason I'm saying that is because of we're living again in a time where everything is monitored and everything that is said needs to be said in a way that we're giving clear and concise information to the public that doesn't mislead, because anything that is said in the wrong way can mislead, because we have to always remember that there are people out there that have those vulnerabilities. You know, when President Trump said he jokingly suggested injecting bleach, people called in and queried whether they can inject bleach to help treat for the coronavirus. So I'm not blaming President Trump. I think he's doing, personally speaking, a lot of people might not agree with me. Personally speaking, I think he's done a great job and he continues to do a great job so far. It doesn't mean that next week I'm going to agree with what President Trump's doing, or next month I'm still going to agree with what President Trump's doing. But at the moment, so far, I agree with what President Trump is doing. And a lot of people don't understand and see what the battle that President Trump is doing. But personally speaking, if you ever caught an old show with me on air, probably like 10 years back, I used to big up President Barack Obama, where my co-presenter at the time hated Barack Obama. And I used to say, give him a chance. But now that we gave him that chance, I personally think Barack Obama was a waste of time now when we reflect back on his time. So, you know, I want to give him a chance because he look how he looks and how he talks and how he moves, but quite frankly, he did nothing for us as a president. And, you know, it's sad, but it has to be said. In the same breath, I can say that President Trump has done a lot more in the infrastructure that he's put in that's helped a lot more black people to pull themselves out of poverty. Now, a lot of black people are upset with President Trump in terms of him giving them the tools for them to work their way out of poverty and taking away. You ever hear the saying, there used to be an advert on TV in the UK back in the 90s that said, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but you teach him how to fish, he can feed himself for life. You know, in a sense, in a nutshell, all political parties are the same, but we can say that the democratic process and the democratic parties in the United States have always shown the give a fish mentality. Whereas what you can see that happened with President Trump was about teaching a man how to fish. And, you know, it's that premise that I stand by in terms of the work that he's been doing, and the stuff that he's been doing. A lot won't agree because they always say the man's racist. But quite frankly, you know, tell me one that isn't. You know, so you choose the best of, you know, the best of a bad bunch, and I won't even say he's a bad bunch. I would say he's done so far a lot that I have to give credit for, and it doesn't mean I'm going to agree with him again. I say next week, I monitor and observe, and I'm free to change my mind. Just like if you look back at Jeremy Corbyn when he first came in, I wanted him to have a chance, but when the elections went last December, you know, his election is whole attitude and approach towards the Brexit question and debate was ridiculous, and it made him sound like an idiot. And his whole the whole process just destroyed and demolished his chances in my eyes, because it was far from what we had expected of him. And that's why my pushing was for Mr. Johnson, because I felt that Mr. Johnson was in a better place in terms of the message that was being pushed and everything by the Tory party at the time. Let me shut the background on the radio. Yeah. So that is my stance in that. We got live caller. All right, bear with me a second, caller. Caller, you're live.
Yes. I want to. Well, I know who you are. I recognize your voice. Yeah, I heard your voice. I know.
You recognize my voice?
Yes, just
Okay.
instantaneously.
All right.
It's Nas. My name is Nas.
How you doing, Naz? Long time. I recognize your voice as well. How you doing?
I'm very, very well. I want you to be more specific as to what Trump is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like generalizing because I don't like Trump.
Okay.
Front.
That's a good question.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to specifics. And as what you're becoming, which you mentioned, in their role.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's never forward. That's
All right, let's have a chat. Let's have a chat whilst you're here then, right now. With Jeremy Corbyn, for example, when he first came in, the whole agenda that he was pushing was, they said it was a bit of a socialist agenda, right?
yes.
And he was pushing for that equality and kind of leveling the playing field in the UK and all that stuff, correct?
That's correct.
Now, he was one that he didn't wear a tie. He was very rough and rugged in terms of his exterior. Whilst being an aged man, his staunch and his position was very anti-establishment per se, but not to destroy the establishment, but to reform the establishment.
I wouldn't want to judge a book by its cover.
Right.
I wouldn't bring judge a book by its cover.
I mean, policy-wise, when we look at the policies per se, what the policies reflected. Yeah, what the policies reflected.
I'll tell you policies like wanting to do away with the prescription.
Mm-hmm.
Policies like wanting to install Wi-Fi every home.
Yeah. So it was.
Policies. It's just
It was.
Jeremy Corbyn undoing was that smell.
It was very. It was clear. We can say it was clear and forward thinking. I've never heard him say anything that was anti-Semitic, and whilst I don't, you know what I mean. But nonetheless, we know the media panicked because the media represents the wealthy, right? The wealthy. So they started a campaign against him, right? And right. And you know that's why the election. We're in agreement. Follow me. We got a lot to get through. Follow me for a second because I want to give all the examples you've asked for, and based on that, when his policies were quite clear, they were quite specific. The media was against it. The wealthy was against it, so you could see based on the media reaction, and then all of a sudden, his party started to rebel against him. He had to go through right. Right. Now, straight away, you cannot vote for a party that's in self-destruction against their very own leader. That's a waste of time because you're not going to get anything done. Right?
Because, you see that it is the perpetration of the status quo. We have a section of the Labour Party that very, very much like, you can't separate them. like the new labor. You can't separate the new labor policy from the Tory policy.
Right.
But if you,
So that was the first knife in the back in terms of with that. Now at that time I was still riding with Jeremy Corbyn because everything that he was doing was still standing firm, standing strong. However, what started to happen was that he started to sway. He started to lean a lot. His policies started to become blurred because every time before he was very clear what he wanted, but every what started to emerge, he started like he was trying to appease. You know, he became like a he had a difficult time, but I am not an appeaser. I'm not an appeaser. So the moment that you were riding and you start to appease.
Look at the guy we have ended up with, the guy who wanted to be interviewed by the press, who ran into a refrigerator. The man literally ran into a refrigerator during the electioneering campaign. Look at the guy we ended up with. I know him personally, but look at the guy we ended up with.
Yeah.
Ended up with.
No, but his information, you see, my thing at the time, right? I felt that this country, being here in this country, that the best place for this country was out of Europe. Now, Jeremy Corbyn used to say that as well. For example, the best place for this country is out of Europe. That was one of his things over the last 30 years. All of a sudden, he's got the opportunity to say, yep, let's get out of Europe, right? And this was the biggest disappointment for me with him. This is a time where he can say, right, listen, out of Europe, this is what we need. What he did, he moved for a massive appeasement approach where he said, right, we are going to, what was it? We're going to make a policy to leave Europe, but we're going to not leave Europe because we're going to give the people a chance to vote on staying in Europe. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about?
It was because of all the if you say obstacles and all the problems that became clear. Look, when we were sold.
Therefore, Naz, therefore, he.
When we were sold, just 1 second. When we were sold the idea of leaving Europe, nobody knew that there was so much lies. We were told so much lies. Let's.
No.
We bought it, and when the reality came.
Naz, you're losing me with that one because when you say no one knows how many lies was told when we're leaving Europe, right? Hold on, Naz. Let me respond first.
Yes.
We cannot say something is a lie because we hadn't left Europe yet. Let me finish. Let me explain. Naz, allow me to explain. You're not allowing me to explain.
Okay, go on.
You're saying the Brexit movement had told lies based on what you're saying. That's what I've inferred. Have I inferred correctly?
That's correct.
All right.
I don't like.
All right. So,
right.
Let me explain then. So they're saying the Brexit movement had told lies. And then they're saying these are the lies that the Brexit movement told. They said the NHS would get 350 million a week and da 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 da. Am I correct?
Yes.
Naz, are we still in Europe now?
We're still in Europe practically.
So how can you say something is a lie that it's not happening yet when we're still in Europe?
Because the facts. When you look at the facts.
No, Naz.
Listen, yeah. During the negotiations, yeah, we are made to understand that the backstop, we had the backstop, we had all the monies, we were being told, we are paying to Europe that if we retrieve those monies, we are going to.
Naz,
yes.
You sound like the BBC News right now. What I'm saying to you, right?
I don't even subscribe to the BBC. I hate the BBC.
No, but I'm saying you sound like the BBC News right now.
I don't subscribe. I don't even take the line there.
What I'm saying to you, right? What I'm saying to you, and what I'm saying to you is that you cannot say the end what the expectation of an end process is before the end process to say that when someone is saying this is what the end process will give, You cannot say that. Let me finish. Naz, no, we're not having a good conversation because you're not allowing me to speak, man. You cannot say that something that you cannot say you're expecting an end process being A, B, C, D. We haven't got to the end process yet, and then you said you lied about the end process being A, B, C, D.
You are just jumping the horse now. I said during the negotiations, which it became glaring obvious that we lied to.
No, Naz. It became what it said was that, remember, a negotiation is just that. You're working out the terms of a process. So you're working out the terms of a process. So if the prime minister at the time, who you mentioned being Theresa May, is acquiescing and giving in to certain points, and then you say, wait, I thought that means that she's not driving the ship and driving it properly based on what the process can be from what you can get from the Brexit process. It doesn't mean the Brexit process was a lie. It just means that her negotiation for what is expected isn't manifesting to what it should be. There's a difference.
Yes, look, okay, are you saying to me that when you are negotiating for anything, the facts, the issues you go to negotiate on concrete, or are they?
What I'm saying is there's nothing concrete in the negotiations. That's why it's called negotiations. You're working out you're working out what's going to become concrete, right? And then, but however, there might be policies and processes in that based on the prior concrete that you've had that restricts what you can do within those negotiations because of what rules and regulations were in place beforehand. Correct?
That's correct. You see what I'm saying is during the negotiations it became clearly obvious that what
the media said that. It didn't become clear. It did not, Naz, because you cannot say that it became clearly obvious that this is a lie, because it didn't. The media said it was based. So it's like if I promised you something, but then I started to negotiate for something else, then they can say, well, that is not correct. But it's not that it wasn't correct in the promise. It's that the leader and her negotiation skills are poor. Have you followed the negotiations recently? They're failing, right? And now what they're saying is that Britain might leave for no deal. No deal means that all the money that's in place, that's going to Europe at the moment, and the consideration of certain things will come to a sudden end, and Britain will be on their own try and WTO conditions.
Go to Europe, and money comes from Europe to this country as well.
Yes, but Britain. Yeah, but Britain. I'm not here to defend that. All I'm saying is I can, but I'm saying I'm not here to defend that. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is the process that you're arguing for is a process for Europeans, and that will benefit Europe. It would not benefit you as a black person in this country. I look at the policies and the processes and the outcomes that's more beneficiary for my people. I'm not looking. I'm not looking. Right, and based on that, based on the whole wrappings, I know that Brexit was better for black folks. I in the sense of, right, the trades. Well, the trades. Listen, the trades with the Caribbean and Africa was destroyed by the European process, the European project, because Britain.
We have no friends.
No, it's not about, it's Naz. It's not about friendship. I'm talking about policies. What I'm explaining to you.
Let us not be hung up on semantics. Friends.
Naz, you came to ramble at me. You didn't come to allow me to speak, because every time I'm trying to speak, you interrupt me. No, because we're having a dialogue, right? You talk, I talk, you talk. You can't we cannot speak. See, I'm even explaining it. You're interrupting again. We cannot have dialogue then. Because you have to allow me to speak, then I'll allow you to respond, and then I'll respond to what you have to say. What I'm
Can you play this back and see how long you've been speaking and how long I've been
No,
listening?
because I haven't had a chance to finish what I'm saying, Naz.
So you have a long-winded, you have a long
It's long-winded.
explanation.
Yes,
That's
correct. It's long-winded. Allow me to speak, then I'll give you a long-winded response if you want one. Yes? All right. Now, the point I was making is the Caribbean and Africa was significantly in the 90s decimated by the European project because of the policies that came in, where Britain was no longer allowed to formulate bilateral agreements and trade with those countries. As a result, it significantly impacted those economies in the 90s. Those countries had to go away and find other routes and other channels. We as a country here, we as a people here in the UK, Black Caribbean and Black African, we found it difficult to get up and then formulate a bilateral trade with our countries because the tariffs that were in place are so high. It's like when you fly to the Caribbean, you pay so much taxes on your flight. It's unbelievable. This is because those agreements have been killed in the water, and Britain put it up. You know what I'm saying? The laws and the climate allowed for that. That's why I'm against the European project, because of how it impacted the people in the Caribbean and Africa, and how it impacted my relationship with those people and Britain's relationship with those countries.
right.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
That's what I was saying with that one.
Right. From the way how I see it is, it doesn't make any difference. If Britain is in Europe, if Britain is out of Europe, it doesn't make any difference how it affects Africa, because it's just been, after independence, it's just been new independence, just been new. We've never, you heard recently of how French speaking countries pay 80% of initially 80% of their GDP they pay into the French central bank, and then when they want this money back, they are giving this money as loan. This only came to light recently. So I'm not as far as dealing with the rest of the world is concerned. Africa needs to look inwards. Doesn't matter if Britain is in Europe, if Britain is out of Europe. It doesn't make any difference with their policies towards Africa. It's always one-sided. It's always people Europe, whether as individual countries or as a collective body as EU.
All right.
Now.
Okay.
Right.
Can I respond, or you're not finished yet? No. Wait, let me respond to that.
I wanted it to be specific.
Yeah. Let me respond to that, and I'll go on to Trump.
What has Donald Trump done specifically?
Let me respond to that. Let me respond to that, and I'll go on to Donald Trump, right? So what you're saying there is quite correct in terms of what's come to light, in terms of what France has done, and the inappropriate policies that were quite prejudicial and racist towards Africa. That is 100% correct. I'm not here to dispute that. However, what you also need to note is that the brain drain of Africa has been based around the fact that most of Africa's intellect has been attracted and drawn to the West. So as a result, you might have at least 150,000 intellects, PhDs in the UK and America, in the diaspora, way outside of Africa, that cannot rebuild and go back and rebuild or link back into Africa to build infrastructure, because the policies and the legislation doesn't allow for a fertile climate. And this is why you have to push for that fertile climate, so that could also take place. Africa, in the meantime, should be looking inwards. We're not telling Africa don't look inwards, but also we here in the West, as they would call it, we need to push for the climate, for that fertile soil, where we can then also help Africa looking internally, stay looking internally, and we can link back with the Caribbean, back with Africa, and then
Africa for Africans at home and abroad. I'm not restricting Africa looking inwards to Africa, in the continent of Africa alone. I'm looking at Africa, looking inwards. Africa, every African diaspora should have hands in contribution, should be welcome to.
Due to the limitation of time, that's the only reason I'm interrupting. Due to the limitation of time, that's the only reason I'm interrupting. All I'm saying is, you might not be, but that's what the European project was doing. And that's why I was anti-Europe and for Brexit. So you might not be looking at it that way, but the European policies and projects would. After we come back, however, on the other side of the news and the advert break, what I will do, I'll deal with the Donald Trump question because, yeah. So if I you no, that's not, that's, don't worry, man, don't call no name. It's the master man right now up on the line. You get me? You get me? So all I'm saying is, right, is you get me? Because we are dealing with a different kind of policies, and right, it's difficult for people like us out here. So all I'm saying is, right, when I come back, I'm going to address it, yeah. And then if you want to call back in, yeah, man, if you want to call back in, if I say anything you don't agree with, the phone line's open. I will always allow people to speak. You know I am, yeah. All right, no worries. So we catch you back on the other side of the news on the advert. All right, no worries. Yes, London is the. Oh, I nearly said the wrong name there. It's a doctor's surgery. We'll catch you back on the other side of the news on the advert. Don't end it. Oh,